Curiosity set out to answer the question, did Mars ever have the right environmental conditions to support small life forms called microbes? So the Apollo space program, this came in at $25.4 billion, and that's in 1960s money. When you adjust for inflation, it's like $250 billion.
Hang on. God bless America. Okay, sorry. I can't hear that.
No. You could keep singing because Reagan gave his approval to construct a space station called Freedom. The James Webb Telescope has objectives, and one of those is to try to see what the universe was like about 200 million years after the Big Bang. We're trying to look as far back as possible. This rover is similar to Curiosity, where it's searching for past life on Mars, collecting soil, rock samples. But the difference here is this one is actually intending to try to bring those rock samples back to Earth.
I'm here today with the man who once, almost 20 years ago, wore an inflatable sumo wrestler outfit and yelled at strangers around town. That man is the legendary Stephen Clark. Stephen, are you wearing your sumo getup today?
No, did you say almost or did?
You did.
Yeah, I did. Okay. For a second, I don't know why, I thought I heard you say almost, and I was like, no, we did that.
Almost 20 years ago is what I said. Yeah, so where's that sumo outfit, do you know?
It wasn't even mine. Part of me wants to say, do you remember when we were recording, and I think it was Buster's idea, but he wanted to get like a subscription to a theater that had a bunch of costumes, and we got to like rent their costumes. I think it might have been one of theirs.
We literally invested money into this.
Yep.
So this is high school. We would dress up as different things. We had a gorilla outfit, a king outfit, and a sumo wrestler. It's like an inflatable sumo wrestler. And we literally, Buster rented costumes from a theater. And they probably thought we were doing a play or a movie, but no, we were just fucking wreaking havoc across our small white suburban Oklahoma city. Stephen, I think after all these years, the only thing I'd love to see more than you donning the sumo outfit again, I want to hear about your list. What did you bring us today to talk about?
I did not know it was my list.
God damn it. Alex Johns, is that you over there? We don't do this joke anymore.
Now, what if I said, joke's on you, here he comes, and what if Alex Johns walked into frame, and then he sat down and said, okay, I have the list today. Do you think that would throw you off? Do you think that would impact your guessing ability? If it was just mixed up like that last minute?
You know why? Because I defy you to find a better list guesser than me. I defy you. And even when my surrounding is shaken up like that, I will still stay on top of my game. I'm not an amateur like you or Alex or Buster or everyone else.
Well, Alex, Buster, Brad, all the other guest hosts who I think this is Nick's thrown down the gauntlet, and this is a challenge, and I think we need to accept it. The
challenge has been every week of this is the 271st episode, and for 271 episodes now, I am pitted against my sidekick host, today it's you, and we see who guesses the list better.
Well, but that's with this traditional rule set of you know who the guest host is going to be. You don't know the list, but you know the guest host, so you can kind of, there's some predictability there, but you are opening the door to, change the rules up a little bit. So maybe I do bring Alex over and you are anticipating some type of Steven-esque list, but instead it changes last minute to Alex, and now Alex has a list.
Yeah, Steven-esque list. What would that be? Okay. Spiders.
Now keep going.
Being a bitch.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Being a jackass. Being an asshole. Am I close? Am I getting close to your Steven-esque list?
Well, you unknowingly have waltzed into my top 10, which is the top 10 Steven-isms, and you actually nailed like the top 7. So let's go ahead and roll through those 7 real quick.
Okay. Episode's over. Great.
Yeah.
I got the whole night ahead of me now. I'm free. All right. Tell me the list for real now.
All right. Well, I'm going to open so I was inspired by this list because Rita and I have been watching a show on Apple, and I resisted it at first. We watched the first episode, wasn't too into it, but we've recently gone back, and I'm glad we stuck with it. It's a show called For All Mankind. Have you watched this show?
It's been on my list for a while. I have not watched it yet, but I plan to. Is it good?
Sounds
like it's good.
It's been good. We're through the first season, just now getting into season 2. I think there's 4 seasons. But, we watched the first episode and I wasn't like just grabbed with it. But, that's the way I felt about Breaking Bad. I got, 5 episodes into season 1 and I was like, I don't know if I like this. And I'm glad I went
Sometimes you
back
got to stick
because
with it. Sometimes you got to stick with it.
you got to stick with it. So we stuck with it, and I'm glad I did. It's been very interesting, but that is what inspired the list today. So my list today are the top 10 most expensive NASA programs.
Top 10 most expensive NASA programs.
Most of these lists were not adjusted for inflation, so this list is not adjusted for inflation, but I don't think that adjusting it would change it that much. One of them would change quite a bit, but the rest of these, I don't think they would change too much. So that's one thing. I did pull some of this information from NASA's website, and then there was a BBC Science Focus magazine that had some information on this, a website called Prestige Online, and then there was a Planetary Society website that I also pulled some of this information off of.
And I'm sure you also referenced the Bible.
Of course.
Of course.
I mean,
well, you mentioned science.
The thing is, this is like implied when you go to NASA's website. You can't even log. It's like when you go to a website that sells alcohol, and they're like, you have to check if you're 21 or not before they even let you in. As soon as you go to NASA's website, they're like, wait, have you read the Bible? And they're not going to let you in unless you click yes. So.
And then you gotta do like a 30-question Bible quiz so they can verify that you've actually read it.
Yeah, and it's time. They're not going to give you time to Google it. Like, you need to know the shit.
Yeah. Well, that's the America we'll live in once Trump comes in office and Project 2025 gets off the ground. But all kidding aside, or was I kidding? Maybe. The top 10 most expensive NASA programs, according to NASA, and is number 1 or 2 the fake conspiracy moon landing that never happened, that NASA funded.
That actually is number 1, but it's not because of all the money that went to, the money that went into the research and the building the rocket and going to the moon and all of that. That's actually the money that they spent on all the propaganda just to make so many people believe that it was fake. You're talking advertising, bribes, lobbying. The money is staggering, honestly.
Okay, well, is there anything else I need to know before I start correctly guessing the list?
No, I don't think so. Are you a bitch?
I'll get back to you at the end of the episode. Actually, listeners, let me know. Am I a bitch? Spotify just released a new thing where you can comment on episodes in the Spotify app. I want you to comment right now and let me know if I'm a bitch. All right. So
if you vote no on that, you can just unsubscribe from the show.
We'll talk about it.
Okay.
I did a list like a year and a half ago with Alex Johns about the biggest science news of the prior year. And one of those was I can't remember what it's called now, but they maneuvered a meteor, like a small meteor, away from Earth as a test case for if they could do it for an actual large, life-threatening meteor. I don't remember what that was called, but I'm going to guess that's in the top 10.
It is not.
Okay, so you let me just go through that whole thing with that. All right.
Yeah, I love watching you squirm. After all your big talk about list guessing.
Well, hey, I'm just loosening up. I'm warming up. I'm doing some drills before the real
get the dust
we're
off,
scrimmaging
get the cobwebs out of there.
I mean, this probably isn't in the top 10, but the rover on Mars, Curiosity, I want to say its name is, that doesn't seem like it'd be in the top 10, but
Curiosity is on here. And for some, I debated on lumping the rovers together into one category, but all of the information that I was getting was not splitting up the rovers, so I decided to not split them up. So Curiosity is number 9 on this list, came in at $2.5 billion.
$2.5 billion. And remind us the year that this launched.
2011.
And you said $2.5 billion.
$2.5 billion with a B, as in bitch.
It's just a cute little robot that snaps 720p photos. I mean, how could that cost 2.5? I mean, I know they got to get it there, but come on.
We're about to find out. So,
all right.
Curiosity set out to answer the question: did Mars ever have the right environmental conditions to support small life forms called microbes? Early in its mission, Curiosity's scientific tools found chemical and mineral evidence of past habitable environments on Mars, and it continues to explore the rock and record from a time... No, wait.
I don't understand. What does Dwayne Johnson have to do with this?
The rock is up there. He's up there driving the rover, believe it or not. The rock down here is a robot that was left behind.
Right.
That's part of where the 2.5 billion came from.
I got you now. I got you. Okay. See, now I'm starting to understand. It's starting to make sense now.
Within a year of being on Mars, Curiosity achieved its primary goal of verifying that the Gale crater, which is where it landed, was an ancient lake bed that had water and chemical elements that once could have supported life. It's still up there, still looking for signs in the Gale crater, and in January of 2022, scientists reported that rock samples found by Curiosity revealed interesting carbon signatures, and on Earth, those can be associated with signs of life. However, there's got to be a lot more research to determine, what they actually were, where they came from, things like that. But the cool thing is Curiosity is like a mobile science laboratory, and it uses images from navigational cameras that are placed around the rover, and as well as images from orbital satellites, such as NASA's Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. Scientists and engineers work together to drive Curiosity around using all of those tools, which is pretty crazy, honestly, especially when you consider the delay. It's not instant. You don't push it. It's not like, playing a video game. There's a long delay of
I want to say 22 minutes, if I recall. I could be off a little bit on that. But I want to say there's a 22-minute delay between us and Mars.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Well, I don't know, actually, because that seems a little long now to think about.
You don't know,
Maybe
is the takeaway.
The answer is I don't know.
This Curiosity, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a self-guided robot as well, right? Like they can come in and control it, but doesn't it also run on its own and take photos and stuff? Or is it strictly manned by someone?
I want to say that they give it a series of inputs that probably last a while. They say they probably plan out the day, and I think they probably submit all of that information, and then the robot goes around and does what it does. It's got like a robotic arm that can collect soil and rock samples with a drill and a scoop, and it can scoop them up and put them in its like little belly, and then that's where it analyzes everything that it's eaten. Kind of like Buster in a way, wouldn't you suspect that he has some technology in his stomach that he can just scoop up and analyze everything he's eaten?
Maybe. I think it's possible. I don't think he's using it though, because I don't know if you've seen that motherfucker will just grab almost anything and just start shoving it in. So I feel like he's not using the tools at his disposal to properly analyze.
So you think the analysis is irrelevant, bro? He's going to get the nutrients no matter what it is. It could be...
Right.
Okay.
Am I crazy, or does Curiosity look a little bit like WALL-E, the Disney robot?
I wonder if WALL-E was inspired by... Well, when did the movie WALL-E come out?
WALL-E came out before.
Oh, it did?
I know that because I just talked about WALL-E on a bonus episode recently. So I'm looking at Curiosity. I guess it doesn't look that much like WALL-E now that I'm looking at it, but it looks like roughly the same size. It's interesting to think that, do you know what the lifespan of Curiosity is? Like, when will it be decommissioned?
I think it's just going to go until it dies. I don't know if they had a... that's a good question. I wonder what the expected lifespan is of...
Well, one reason I ask is because they're not going to bring it back. So that robot will just live up there forever until humans make it up there.
Its mission was planned to last 1 Martian year, which is 687 Earth days, so 2 years. But it's gone well beyond that.
Maybe like its primary mission was that, and now it's kind of just...
Yeah. It looks like as of 2020, it has traveled 13.5 miles around Mars.
That's it?
Yeah,
I guess it's not built to like...
We're not on highways out there, Nick. We're not going 80 miles an hour.
Not yet. Not yet. Okay. Well, Mars is bringing up some ideas. So is there anything else on Curiosity you want to say?
No, that's all I got on Curiosity.
Steven, be honest. If you put some lipstick on Curiosity, put a dress on it, and you got a little alcohol in you, how many drinks do you think it would take for you to just start to take Curiosity out on a date?
Here's the thing with Curiosity. It's not gonna wow you with its first impression. It's not gonna, it's not sexy. It's a little blocky. But you get enough drinks in you, and then it starts telling you about, all the rocks that it's eaten and all the analysis that it's done on those rocks. And I mean, you're talking to something that's been to Mars, and I'm
about dirty talk.
Presuming it's come back, because now I'm going on a date with it here. Unless I'm so drunk, I think the ATM machine is the Mars Curiosity rover, which in that case, I must have had quite a few.
What's like the whole point of Curiosity is to find signs of past life, no matter how small that life might have been. But why? Like, I know we do it for curiosity and it helps us learn new things, but it's kind of almost like that information does what for us?
Well, I think really you're just trying to answer the big question, which is, are we alone? And I think if that answer, people assume we're not alone, but nobody knows that for certain. But I think that if it comes out with irrefutable hard facts that we are not alone, I feel like that changes, it changes people's perspective. And I don't know, the big thing is we want to find intelligent life, but you're not, you can't go to
We're not
the
going to
finish
find
line.
that.
You got there's
anytime
baby
soon.
steps. Yeah, you got to build your way up to that. And I feel like you just gotta work your way towards it. And also, whenever you're developing this technology to be able to go out there, it's kind of like when we were going to the moon. A lot of technology that came out of the research of trying to keep astronauts alive in space and on the moon, there were like unintended benefits in everyday life that came from that, like the microwave. So there's just pushing the envelope on the frontier of science and trying to learn more and grow our scientific understanding of everything is just going to push everything forward.
Yeah, but they're not bringing in a profit. That's why we got to cut funding to NASA.
Treat it like a business.
We're talking about Mars. And just recently, I saw a news story about how they just finished a giant Mars simulation where astronauts were living in a simulated Mars environment on Earth. And they tried to make it as close to Mars as possible to kind of see how humans would respond to actually being on the red planet.
Yeah, I saw some of that when I was doing this research.
Yeah,
Yep.
That just happened. So is that on here?
No, but it's
all
very cool, very interesting.
Speaking of that episode where I talked to Alex about the changing the course of the asteroid, there was some other missions that year. Artemis, maybe? Like something like that? Some cool name like that? It was a moon mission. Is that on here?
Artemis is on here. Would you like to take a guess on where this is on the list? Because I don't think I gave you a chance to guess on the rover.
Artemis, there's an Artemis 1 and 2, I believe. Are they combined here?
I don't know if there's an Artemis. Okay, this is...
Maybe Artemis 2 is still to come, possibly.
Yeah, I think Artemis 2 is still to come. This is just Artemis 1.
Well, I'm going to say Artemis 1 is number 6.
Nope.
3.
There you go.
I knew it.
Did you just have your... You said, no, all right, 6, let's cut it in half.
I mean, I'm not going to divulge my ways, but I have my rationale. Artemis 1, number 3.
Artemis 1 and number 3. So I personally did not know very much about this mission until I started doing research for this list. And this is honestly like really cool. I don't know how much you know about it.
Well, I was going to say, I do remember researching it and thinking it's cool, but I need a refresher. So you'll remind me here when you start talking.
Well, it's a good thing I'm here because...
Yeah.
So there are 31 countries led by NASA that are participating in this program. And surprisingly, we just talked about this guy, former U.S. President Donald Trump gave the push for this new mission to the moon by signing the Space Policy Directive in December of 2017. And this spawned the Artemis program. So, for those who don't know, Artemis is the first crewed moon mission since the end of the Apollo program, which is kind of why a lot of this excitement is underway, because it's been, I think the last time we went to the moon was in 1972. And this is kind of it's bringing back the moon missions. So there's going to be a spacecraft called Orion, and it's a 98 meter tall, which I guess is about, what is that, almost 300 feet, probably like 250 feet.
180 would be almost a little under 300 feet.
Yeah. So there's going to be that's the Space Launch System rocket. Artemis 1, which we were just talking about, it's an uncrewed mission for testing purposes that was launched in November of 2022. And the first 4 astronauts are expected to be carried to space by a flyby mission around the moon in 2024 as part of the Artemis 2 mission.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
Artemis
and
2.
then this is going to be followed by the Artemis 3 mission in 2025, which is actually going to put astronauts on the moon.
From the U.S., right? Or is it several countries going to the moon at the same time?
Several countries participating. I'm not sure where they're launching these from. I do know that a lot of private companies are participating in this Artemis program, like SpaceX is developing the human landing system.
Arby's.
And yeah, Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin is going to provide an HLS for Artemis 5. So there is some participation from some private companies, but I'm not sure where, I don't know where these are going to launch from.
And the end goal is what? To get people on the moon again.
So the main objective, according to NASA, is to establish the first long-term presence on the moon. So as part of the plan, they're going to build a base camp and they're going to build a lunar base camp on the moon. And so we're going to have basically, long-term residences, I guess. What's the word I'm looking for? Long-term people are going to be living up there. They're not just going to walk up there, take a few steps, and then leave. They're staying, which is really
Which
cool.
is a huge step in the long road to colonizing other planets.
They're going to allow them to build robots and do more things on the moon and conduct more science than ever before on the moon with a base there.
That is exciting. When does it say when the base will... When will man... Sorry. I'm trying to ask like three things at once. When will people next step foot on the moon?
That's 2025. That's the next year.
Okay, all right.
This year they're planning a flyby. So we already did a successful unmanned mission. This year we're going to do a mission that's going to kind of fly by, make sure we can get to the moon and back and not have any issues. And then next year we're going to send a spaceship to the moon and people are going to land. So I don't know if I told you how much this was.
No, you didn't.
So NASA is projected to spend $93 billion on the Artemis effort up to 2025. So that's going to be missions 1, 2, and 3. That number is going to grow because this program is expected to go beyond.
It doesn't sound that bad, honestly. But I guess that's just getting them there, right? That doesn't include any of the base building part of it.
I need to do a little more research, I guess, on what Artemis 3 is actually, what that actually incorporates, because I know that I think one of the astronauts is supposed to be one of the first people of color that are going to be on the moon. So like there's some information about the astronauts that are going, but I don't know if they actually have like a space habitat that's going to like a moon base that's going to be going up with it. Let me actually take a look at that. I should have had that research done.
Shoulda, woulda, coulda.
It doesn't look like it's a base yet. It looks like it's just a trip there and back.
It's a step in the right direction.
Hey there, listener. Do you enjoy the Tennis Podcast? Of course you like it. Otherwise, then what the hell are you doing here? And since you enjoy the Tennis Pod, I'm asking you to do me, Dr. Buster, not Nick. I know you wouldn't do it for Nick, but please, please, please just do me a simple favor. Pause the episode right now and rate Tennis Podcast 5 stars on your podcasting app of choice. Is that Spotify? Is it Apple? Is it Good Pods? Is it whatever the hell else? I don't even know. There's like 100 different podcast hosting sites now. And so many other apps have a quick and simple way to rate the Tennis Pod 5 stars with just one tap. You do not even have to tap it 5 times to get 5 stars. Only one tap. I mean, come on. How much easier can we make it? It might not seem like much, but it really helps us out. And if you're feeling extra cheeky, then hey, write a quick review too. Your reviews help other people discover our show and gives you a chance to let Nick know that Dr. Buster is your favorite sidekick host. Take a few seconds to rate and review Tennis Podcast now. It's so easy, but very much appreciated. We want to say thank you for everything that you all do to support the show. Thank you very much.
Stephen, do you think mankind will live long enough to develop the technology to leave our solar system?
I mean, technically, we already have
a manned crew.
I mean, it's kind of we kind of already can. I feel like if we wanted to, you would have to.
It would take too long. I don't think a human could live long enough.
It would take a long time. I'm just trying to think, like, would you be able to support? It would take a lot of money. I feel like the technology is there to build a craft to be able to support enough people, but they would have to be like making babies and be self-sufficient, which I guess would be the real trick. I don't know if they could do that. I mean, I don't feel like we're that far off. It's just, it's not like from a science standpoint, I don't feel like we're that far off. But from like a feasibility and like, is this actually like a reasonable thing to do? Because these people are going to go and we're sending them off to their death. There's no like safe return plan for that, so we're never going to do that.
Do you remember at the end of Interstellar when they're on that, like the very end, when they're on that ship that's like been built into a community? And like everyday regular people are on the ship and they're traveling through space to get to the new planet.
Yeah.
You're saying something like that, right? Because with current technology, as far as I know, someone could correct me, I guess, but we could only go so fast.
Yeah, we can only go so fast.
Right. Even if someone were to get on this ship today, and it would take them too long to get out of our solar system to where that would become their new home until their death, basically. And you would have to like start a population on this ship.
I mean, you're talking about a lot of guesswork with what I'm saying. Like if people were trying to breed on a in zero gravity, I don't think there's ever been an attempt to ever give birth in a zero gravity environment. I don't even know how that would work. You would be trying to have a baby, and the baby would have to grow up in a zero G environment, which is very challenging. I mean, there would have to be some type of artificial gravity with rotation or something to be able, because the baby would, I don't know if the bones or the muscles would ever grow because there'd be no, there's no workout in zero G. So it's just like, I don't know. It may not even be feasible. I mean, you could put people in a ship and send it out and say, see you later, we'll never see you again. And they can just go off into the wide unknown.
Yeah, I have a few people I want to put on that ship. I have a few people I want to put on that ship. Buster, what are you doing next week? Yeah, but I get what you're saying. But
like
okay,
for
so
a safe return flight and be able to and be safe.
That's not
That's not. I don't. I mean, within a couple 100 years, I would feel like that's, I don't feel like that's too far off. Think about it this way, in the early 1900s, or I guess the late 1800s, nobody was flying yet. And then within like 70 years, we were on the moon. So it's like something could happen and technology could fly ahead.
I firmly believe, I think I've said this to you before, but I firmly believe that given enough time, humans will figure out anything. The question is if we have enough time, because humans could die off from a million things. The sun exploding, wars, nuclear wars. Yeah, it is, but I'm just saying, close. Nuclear wars, famines, global warming, booty clap on the wrong day with the wrong weather conditions, and who knows. But I guess I ask this because the future of humanity, eventually, we have to leave the solar system because the sun will end. It might be billions of years from now, but there is an end point to this solar system.
Yeah, on a long enough timeline, we either die or we leave. I see what you're saying.
That's what I'm saying. So I guess I'm saying if you had to put your money down today, do you think we'll ever leave? I know the technology is theoretically going to be possible, but will we get to that point before whatever else takes us out?
We will do it because unless we kill ourselves. If we kill ourselves, then that's not going to happen. But if there's some type of external threat that would unite humanity, I do feel like people would come together and figure the fuck out. Because, like, if we found out that an asteroid was coming here and it was going to have a direct impact in 3 years or whatever, and there was going to be no way to divert it, this is like a guaranteed everybody's going to fucking die. I bet everybody would come together real quick and figure out a solution.
Have you seen Don't Look Up on Netflix?
No, I have not.
You need to watch it because that is the exact plot of the movie. The exact plot is there is an unavoidable asteroid coming to Earth, and the whole movie is about the scientific community and stuff trying to warn people and everyone. I won't get into it, but you got to watch it. I'm not as convinced as you that humanity would unite to get off the planet in a 3-year timeline, for example.
Would the entirety of humanity, every single person come together? No, but I think the major players and the smart people would. And I think that they would come up with a solution.
I would hope so. All right, let me give you another guess. So that was Artemis 1 at number 3.
Artemis 1, 2, and 3. It was all...
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm trying to hang on to a few of the big ones here. There was a mission at some point that sent rovers to... Have we ever sent a rover beyond Mars? I guess we haven't, right?
Not a rover. We've sent, we've satellites
sent
and things like that. And yeah, but we haven't sent rovers. But
is there any satellite type?
There is one... Yeah.
All right. There's one that went out all the way out to Pluto, I want to say. I think it's still on its way. Is that one?
It's not that one.
There's one that went to Jupiter's moon, I want to say. I don't know. Just tell me.
It wasn't that one. This one, I didn't know very much about this one. It was, and I'm not even sure how to pronounce it. It's the Cassini-Huygens. Huygens? Huygens.
Are you making this up?
No. This is number 8. 3.26 billion. Huygens, yeah. I think maybe that's how it's pronounced.
Well, if not, I'm sure I'll get a lot of emails about it.
I'm sure you will. This one was cool. I didn't know much about this one. This was a joint endeavor by NASA, the European Space Agency, and the Italian Space Agency. And this was a sophisticated robot spacecraft that we sent to Saturn to be able to fly through its rings and fly through Saturn and collect all of this data about Saturn. So Cassini carried a probe that was called Huygens to the Saturn system. And the probe was built by the European Space Agency, and it parachuted to the surface of Saturn's largest moon, Titan, in January of 2005. And this is the most distant landing.
Familiar.
What's that?
This is all sounding familiar. I remember all this.
So this is, I believe, the most distant landing to date in our solar system. And Huygens returned all of these crazy images during its 2.5-hour descent through Titan's hazy atmosphere before landing on the ice and landing by this liquid methane lake that was on Titan. But one of the images, I was going to tell you to take a look at it. If you Google Cassini-Huygens and then look at Saturn's North Pole that was known as the hexagon, there's a really cool, like, moving image of it.
Let me see. And for the listeners, I'll put a link to this image in the show notes. Saturn North Hemisphere, you said? Or pole?
North Pole.
North Pole.
Known as the hexagon. It's like this really colorful, spiraling
Yeah, I see it.
image.
Well, I see a few. There's one that's like reddish and one that's purplish.
Yeah. And I'm sure some of that, there's like intense colorization that probably goes on with some of those images. But
It's interesting. Yeah.
yeah, it's really cool.
What is it? It's not ice. Is it?
No, well, Saturn's a gas giant. So it's like, it's
Yeah,
kind of like
okay.
Jupiter, where it has like these crazy intense storms, like the giant red spot that's been going for hundreds or thousands of years. I'm not even sure how long that thing's been going on, but it's kind of like that. And I'm thinking of Neptune. I know Neptune, I think, has another like spot kind of like
Neptune is a
Jupiter,
very
like
stormy
that.
planet. Yeah.
Yeah. But so Cassini had like its initial 4-year mission, earned 2 mission extensions that enabled the device to go even deeper into Saturn's mysteries. There were key discoveries during the 13 years at Saturn that included a global ocean with strong indications of hypothermal activity within Enceladus and liquid methane seas on Titan. The mission ended in September of 2017. And that was kind of what I think produced a lot of these colorful images that you were looking at.
But when you say the mission ended, that means they like stopped using it. But
it might have finally like broke down.
Sure,
out
like
there.
for whatever reason, it's not in operation anymore.
Yeah.
But it's still sitting there on the surface of Titan, right?
Yeah, unless some big googly aliens came by and said hoobity hobbity blah, blah, and picked it up and
I don't know why. I don't know why I'm fixated on that, but it's so fascinating to me to think of this man-made thing sitting in this deserted planet and just forever. It's just crazy to me. And I do remember somewhere seeing that, like, of everywhere in the solar system besides Earth and maybe Mars, Titan is, maybe the best chance of a habitable, am I saying that right? Habitable, planet or moon in the solar system.
I think that's right, because I think it's because of its liquid methane lakes that there could be some microbial life that could be living, down there.
I think there's some, what did you call them? Liquid methane lakes? I think there's some of that on Buster's couch after he sits there for a while. But anyway, these are some cool images. Anything else?
Nope, that's all I have on that one.
Is there another rover?
There is another rover. If I was going to give you a hint, that would have been it.
Is it a moon rover?
No.
Mars?
Yes.
Because there was an old rover there that, like, Curiosity is much more advanced than. I don't remember the name of this one, though. I want to say maybe 90s?
There were like a couple older rovers. There were 2 rovers that were sent together. They didn't make this list, and that's part of why I thought about combining all these rovers so that we could have a chance to talk about all of them. But those 2 did not make the list.
But there is a rover on the list.
There is a rover. It's newer.
I don't know if I know the name of it. Is it there now? Well, I mean, it must be there now, but is it there after Curiosity?
Yep. Curiosity was 2011. This one was 2020.
Spirit?
No. I think Spirit was one of the older ones.
Perseverance.
There you go.
All right.
That's the one.
Perseverance was 2020. It must be more expensive than Curiosity, so I'll put that at number 4 or 2.
Nope.
5.
Nope.
6.
Nope.
7.
Nope.
10?
It is cheaper.
How?
By 0.1 billion. I don't know. This one came in at 2.4 billion.
All right. If you say so. I don't know if I'm buying it, but all right.
All right. This rover is similar to Curiosity, where it's searching for past life on Mars, collecting soil, rock samples. But the difference here is this one is actually intending to try to bring those rock samples back to Earth.
Oh, okay. How's it going to do that?
So to be able to get the samples back to Earth, there's going to require at least 2 more missions that are currently being planned by NASA and the European Space Agency. I don't know how they're going to do it, but they're going to try to get it back. The cool thing about this one is that this Perseverance launched in July of 2020, which was right in the middle of the COVID pandemic. So almost looks like 8 years later, almost in February in 2021, it landed in the Jezero crater. An ancient.
You said 8 years later, but you meant 8 months later.
Oh, 8 months later. Sorry. Yeah, I meant to say months. I didn't mean years. It landed in the Jezero crater, and it landed in a site of ancient lake and a lake and a river delta. So this machine, Perseverance, is a 1-ton, 6-wheeled Mars rover the size of a compact car.
We're talking about the Perseverance rover. Or we're talking about my first wife. Am I right?
I haven't heard that one before.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It weighs a ton.
It weighs a ton, which is crazy that, I mean, they had to, it's
they
expensive
had to get that thing off the planet.
It's expensive to get shit off Earth. And, I mean, they fucking did it. So this thing can operate through dust storms that block sunlight. It has solar powered. It's also got nuclear power in it. To land, they improved upon Curiosity's like complex 7-minute landing sequence that was like dubbed the 7 minutes of terror. I guess they took some lessons from that and learned from them. So the landing involved a supersonic parachute, a thruster-powered descent, and nylon cords that lowered Perseverance to the final few meters to the surface.
Yeah. You know, you got to remember that these things, we take it for granted sometimes, the technological marvels of these things. They are built on Earth and designed to do this shit, you know,
in
billions of miles
place
away.
Where nobody's been.
Yeah, where no one's been and there's no one there to man it. I mean, I know they're manning it like from afar, but like it is crazy. It is interesting.
Imagine how crushing it would be to put all of this work into it, build this thing. It's working. You put it on the spaceship. You spend all this money to get it off of Earth. You wait months and months for it to get there. The landing sequence goes great, and then you try to turn it on, and it doesn't turn on. Imagine how crushing that would be to have just a dead rover that you just spent all that time, and nobody can go up there and fix it. It's just there.
No. Imagine how crushing it is to be on the Apollo 13 mission and fucking explode.
Yeah. All right.
So yeah, a lot can, and I don't mean to like make light of that, but I'm just saying like there's a lot that can go wrong. They're working with so many unknowns on every mission they do, big and small, and it's incredible. It's incredible, important work that I just think we take for granted as a society but it's not. I mean, it's I don't know. I'm wowed by it every time I talk about it.
Yep. And this thing has so much stuff on it. It has these 2 spectrometers that are science instruments that are able to shine ultraviolet light on a rock or a soil patch and read the reflected light signature to determine what chemical compounds are there. And these spectrometers are well suited to detecting organic compounds to help it figure out if life could have been there at one point. It's just like the Curiosity rover. It's got robotic arms and this super camera on top of it that also has a laser that can zap rocks up to several meters away.
Wow.
It's really cool. But the coolest thing about this, you've got all of these fancy gadgets and stuff on it, but...
Fancy gadgets. You sound like my fucking grandpa, but yes, please gadgets. Go on.
But the coolest thing to me about this is that inside Perseverance, inside this rover, it carried a small helicopter drone called Ingenuity. And on Mars, this helicopter drone has completed 72 flights and has been flying around taking aerial surveillance of Mars.
Now that's badass.
So not only did you launch this rover and send it through an atmosphere, have this like fucking, you're going terminal velocity about to crash land on a planet. You've got your emergency parachute and whatever. But once you land, you're operating, you got lasers and spectrometers and all these very carefully tuned instruments. Then the inside can open up and a fucking helicopter will come flying out and also go look at shit. Like,
and the helicopter... Cool. The drone will go look at shit and then I guess come back, right? And kind of land back on.
It completed its final flight this year, actually. In January, I think it finally had something must have knocked it out, but it said that it completed its mission, its final mission.
It's cool. And then when you said there was something inside, like it opens up, I thought you were going to say like a nougaty, chocolate center inside or something. But
I just listened to the chocolate candy episode, so enrobed.
Yeah, the Perseverance was enrobed over a chocolate middle. Yes, chocolate drone. Okay, well, that's cool. I forgot all about Perseverance. Everyone talks about Curiosity. No one ever talks about Perseverance.
The last thing it's not even really about Perseverance, but the little fun fact is that in the 2030s, NASA is planning this Dragonfly spacecraft, which is an 8-bladed drone-like spacecraft called a quadcopter that will explore the moon Titan. And when it's describing that, I'm envisioning like Dune. You know those dragonfly-looking things that they fly around through the dust storms and stuff? That's what I'm envisioning with this description. But
it's interesting to me to think about, when I go to work or you go to work, we're doing like, in the grand scheme of the world, pretty meaningless shit, right? Like in the grand scheme of things, who gives a fuck about what we're doing at work? Or this podcast, who gives a fuck? And people arguing about politics or people watching TV shows. These fucking NASA people are building this shit to learn about space and to extend the human species and to help the human species survive. They must think we're all just a bunch of idiots talking about and doing the shit we do when they're doing all this important shit.
Yep. Literally the best of the best of the best, I hope.
Yeah, I hope.
mean, they've got to be, because it doesn't seem like there's very many failed missions.
Well, there's a few famous ones.
Yeah, well, there's famous ones, I know, but like in recent memory, well, at least
they
these
have a pretty
rovers,
good...
like I haven't heard any. Like, it's not like we launched a rover and everyone was excited about it, and then everyone's like, "Oh, sorry, that rover, that just didn't work." We'll get back to you.
And this episode today brought to you by NASA. Okay, so I'm going to give you another guess. How about one of the ones that didn't go well? How about we talk about the Apollo missions? Well, there was one, I think I said Apollo 13 earlier. I think that's the one where people died, right?
Well, you said Apollo missions that didn't go well, but the Apollo missions took us to the moon.
Okay,
Allegedly.
Allegedly. I mean, Stanley Kubrick took us to the moon, I think. But if I'm going to narrow in on one, and that's the Apollo 13 mission.
So it's not individual missions. This is the entire Apollo space program as a whole.
Apollo space program. I mean, I think it would easily be number one, but you said it's not adjusted for inflation, which gives me pause. But I'll go ahead and say number one, just because the Apollo program was so expansive and included so many different things. So let's go with Apollo program at number one.
It is not number one. However, if it was adjusted for inflation, it would be number one.
Yeah. All right. Is it still in the top 5?
It's in the top 5. It is not 2.
4.
Yes.
I knew it.
Okay.
Apollo.
So the Apollo space program, this came in at $25.4 billion, and that's in 1960s money. So when you adjust for inflation, it's like $250 billion.
That still doesn't sound that bad. I mean, considering they got us to the
bad.
fucking moon.
All right. $250 billion, and Nick's like, I mean,
hey. I'm just saying, like, if you came up to me in 1969 and said, hey, how much does it cost to get to the fucking moon? I'd be like, $10 trillion? I mean, you know what I mean? Like, just, like, this is what I was saying with taking it for granted earlier. Like, it's this huge fucking thing. And I don't know, 25 billion doesn't sound that bad.
Hey, you heard it here first. Not that bad, folks. That's what...
Inflation.
Yeah, inflation.
Thanks, Joe Biden.
God damn it.
God damn it, Stephen.
I had one quote to read on this whole thing, and I fucked it up in the first word. So one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. That was Neil Armstrong when he landed on the moon.
Do you think he had to plan that out, right? That he had to workshop with people what he was going to say.
The real question is, how many people asked him, what are you going to say when you land on the moon?
Yeah.
Especially since everyone knew it was going to be televised. You know, a lot of publicity, I'm sure. Honestly, I couldn't have done better. It's pretty...
No, it's a great quote. You know, I hope they televise the next moon landing that you said they're doing in 2025.
I'm sure they will. I don't, like, you know, when you watch, like, documentaries or TV shows or whatever, and even For All Mankind, you know, when you watch it, it seems like everybody was crowded around television sets. People were standing in Times Square, like, watching it on whatever. Like, the whole world was united watching this one thing. How many people do you think are actually going to watch this next moon landing? Or actually, let me phrase the question better. Landing on Mars. How about we get a human on Mars? I feel like that's a more fair way to frame it, because we've already been to the moon, allegedly.
I think someone landing on Mars could be an event that is close to what the 1969 moon landing is, where a huge majority of the world is watching the same thing at the same time. The next moon landing I could see being a little bit like the presidential debates. Like, still a ton of people watching it, but not everybody, right? Some people just watch clips later on Instagram. So I don't know, but everyone's going to see it, whether or not they watch it live.
Well, but do you think it's going to be to the same scale that, all of these documentaries and TV shows show it to be, where everybody's gathered around and huddled around TV sets and families and everybody's everywhere watching it? Or do you think it's something where it's like, no, I'm at work, I'll probably watch a YouTube recap when I get home?
I think the next moon landing will be that. I'll watch a YouTube recap when I get home.
What about Mars?
I think the Mars landing will be the first one. The first thing you said, where everyone's crowded around. I mean, I hope so.
I hope
deserves
so too.
it.
I want it to be that way. I don't know if it will be.
Me too.
Want it to be, though. I'll watch it live.
Well, I think a lot of it depends on what happens between now and then. There was a time, this is like when I was in high school, which would have been like the early to mid 2000s. I remember reading somewhere like they're planning for humans to be on the moon in the 2020s. I'm pretty sure that got postponed. So I don't know what the current plan is for that, but maybe you do. Do you know?
Well, the Artemis program was putting people on the moon next year.
No, I'm talking about Mars.
Oh, Mars. Oh, no, sorry. I thought, I don't know if there's a plan to put anybody on Mars right now. I think maybe a hope of the Artemis program may be to launch from the moon to get to Mars, because it would take much less energy to be able to escape the moon's gravity than it is to escape Earth. So maybe we could get some kind of ship from the moon and have that go from the moon to Mars. And
that makes sense.
Depending on how this base works out up there. And, I don't know. I feel like within the next 30 to 50 years, I feel like that's reasonable. If there's a push for it.
I'm on NASA's website right now.
Okay.
And it says that they plan on getting... Where'd it go? I just had it. Oh, they're planning on getting humans to Mars as early as the 2030s.
Wow, okay. So that's next 15 years.
That could change, but listen to this. There's some stats about Mars on here. The round trip mileage from Earth to Mars, round trip is 1 billion miles, although that's always changing because
it depends on where in the orbits we are,
I'm
assuming that's when we're closest. That's when you ideally would want to launch.
And it's an estimate. It's not exact.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we'll be on Mars hopefully in the 2030s. I hope so.
Well, let's get back to the Apollo program. So the moon landing was on Apollo 11, one of the 11 crewed missions, including 6 lunar landing missions of Project Apollo. Apollo 11 was the first mission of the program to actually land on the moon. The program saw 12 astronauts walk on the lunar surface until the last mission in 1972. They conducted some research on the lunar surface, collected some rocks, brought them back to Earth. The program started in 1961 with the test of the Saturn I rocket, and a milestone was reached with the first flight of the Saturn V rocket in November of 1967 as part of the Apollo 4 mission. And then you talked about, some unfortunate mishaps, we'll call it, with the NASA program. So there was an accident during a pre-launch test of it was a mission designated AS-204 in January of 1967 that led to the deaths of 3 astronauts, Gus Grissom, Ed White, and Roger Chaffee. In their memory, the AS-204 was later redesignated as Apollo 1. And the first crewed Apollo mission to get to space was Apollo 7 in 1968. So, and like I said, this was $25 billion in 60s money, and it comes out to like a little more than $250 billion as of 2020. So it's one of the most expensive missions to date.
Like 100 years before the moon landing, people are still shitting in the streets. The fact that we got to the moon in the 1960s is wild.
They were just figuring out the light bulb and shit. Like, it is crazy how...
It moved so fast.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's so hard to, I don't know, it's really hard to predict any of this and project, like, when are we going to do this and when are we going to do that? Because the thing is, there's people in the 60s didn't even know what the fuck the internet was. I don't even think there was a conception of the internet. Maybe it was in its infancy, but and nobody knew it was going to do what it's going to be and how interconnected the world is today. What's going to be the next internet? That we have no fucking idea what it's going to be.
Yeah.
Could be AI. I don't know.
It was less than 70 years from the first flight,
which
was a very rudimentary, basic, flight. Compared to less than 70 years later, we are walking on the moon.
In one person's lifespan, they could have seen the first human flight on Earth that lasted like, I don't know how, wasn't it like 2 minutes or something? It wasn't even that long.
It was short, yeah.
Yeah, and then within your same lifespan, people are on the moon.
Yep, it's crazy.
Wild.
Okay.
All right, well, that's the Apollo program.
Let's do a quick recap where we are so far.
Sure. All right. So number 10, the Perseverance rover, 2.4 billion. Number 9, the Curiosity rover, 2.5 billion. Number 8, the Cassini-Huygens satellite that went to Saturn at 3.26 billion. Missing number 7, missing number 6, missing number 5. Number 4 is the Apollo space program at 25 billion, but, adjusted for inflation, it would have been number 1. Number 3, the Artemis program, which right now looking like 93 billion, but program is still underway, and that number could grow. And then
that could easily become number 1 as well.
Could easily, yeah, depending on how successful it is and how much we start investing on moon bases. And then you're missing number 2 and you're missing number 1.
What was the program that put the International Space Station in place? Is that on here?
Well, that is the International Space Station.
Okay, so I'm going to say that's on here then. And
yep, it sure is.
Although, based on the name, I'm going to assume that cost was shared among several nations, but we're only looking at the cost to NASA. It's a big thing, ain't it? I guess I'll take my shot and say number 1.
Close.
2.
Number 2, 150 billion.
What year was that?
1984. So this cost isn't just, this station is still operational. It's still running, and there's still money going into it to keep this thing going. So this is a lifetime cost of this International Space Station, not just the cost of the station itself and to get it up there. This is all encompassing.
The cumulative cost.
Cumulative cost, yeah. It's the 9th crewed space station and one of 2 currently in operation. The other one is China's Tiangong space station. So this thing is orbiting 400 kilometers above the Earth's surface. I'm going to guess that's like 200-ish miles or something. Maybe a little more than 200 miles. You want to check me?
Sure. I mean, I think that's about right. Let's see. 248 miles.
Sounds about right. So work on the space station began in 1984 after President Ronald Reagan, bless his soul, gave his approval.
God bless America. Okay, sorry. I can't hear that.
No. You could keep singing because Reagan gave his approval to construct a space station called Freedom. So,
America, fuck yeah.
So until 1993, NASA, the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, the European Space Agency, and the Canadian Space Agency, friends up in Canada, the respective...
The Canadian Space Agency, that's just like a fucking, like a warehouse with 2 guys working in it. They contributed like a few $100.
Like the maple syrup to hold some of the components together.
And we just patted them on their head and said, "Aw, thanks." All right.
Well, all of those industries, or I guess agencies, worked on building the space station's elements. Political and economic complications resulted in the U.S. and Russia joining hands, and that's when the Roscosmos, it's all in caps, so it probably stands for something, but the Roscosmos entered the picture, and the program was renamed the International Space Station. So the actual assembly of the space station was done in 2 phases, starting in 1995. Phase 1 launched as part of what was dubbed the Shuttle Mir program, and in this phase, that phase ended in 1998. 11 NASA space shuttles carried astronauts and cosmonauts to Russia's orbital Mir station, and then phase 2 started after that.
Right. And today, and throughout the years, it's been jointly maintained by these different agencies, right?
Yeah, it's jointly maintained. The construction was completed in the year 2000. And
does Russia still contribute to this?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure over 200 astronauts and cosmonauts from 20 different countries have visited the International Space Station, where they have regularly conducted spacewalks for its expansion, maintenance, and upgrades. This thing is over 100 meters in length, which is like almost 300 feet end to end. It has living and working spaces that's larger than a 6-bedroom house, has 6 sleeping quarters, 2 bathrooms, a gym, and a 360-degree view bay window, which would be pretty cool to go in that. I mean, a 360-degree like viewing window to be in space. That's got to be
I think seeing Earth from space would be life-changing.
I think that's one of the quotes from Carl Sagan, or maybe it was Carl Sagan. I can't remember who it was, but somebody said that like if you could take all of the leaders of the world who are like squabbling with their petty bullshit here on a small planet in the grand scheme of everything. Send them up there and let them look at space from almost a third person perspective, like being way out. Hopefully you would think would resolve a lot of issues, but unfortunately I think those people are so shitty that I don't think they would give a fuck. They'd probably be like, how do I make money off this?
Their hearts are so hardened and cold, I don't think they could even be affected by it.
How do I put nuclear missiles on this thing?
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm kind of surprised Russia and US are still like collaborating on this thing. But anyway, you mentioned that there was enough living space as like a 6-bedroom house, and there's all this office space and all, but there's only 2 bathrooms? I mean, come on.
Hey,
I guess there's never that many people there at once.
No, I don't think so.
Get in line. Can you imagine waiting in line on the fucking International Space Station to go take a piss? Just do it out the window. Who gives a fuck?
Yeah, but I think, I guess they're not usually wearing their spacesuits while they're in there. Probably not. I think their spacesuits have some of them, but I don't think they're actually wearing them in there.
Okay, so that was number 2. What could number 1 be? Okay, we'll save number 1, but give me a hint on 5, 6, or 7, because I can't really think of anything else.
Okay, so one of these is kind of... not misleading. It's just you wouldn't think that it's a NASA thing, but everybody uses it every single day. I used it today.
GPS?
Yes.
I don't know what that program's called. Is it just the program that
it's just GPS as a whole. These GPS satellites have gone through, a lot of... There's been a history with it, right? But it's all been government controlled, and NASA has been kind of in charge of it.
For the world or just the US?
No, and this is part of what, when I was looking at these lists, the European GPS system, there's the Russian GPS system, and there's the American GPS system, and all of these were on this list because they're all very expensive. But right now, for this list, I'm only focusing on NASA's. So,
okay.
American.
Number 5?
Close.
Well, then it has to be number 6 because it's not number 4. So what's it called? Just
you're
GPS?
Paying attention. Yeah, I just have it as our GPS system. This started in 1978, and it's been kind of ongoing. But in the early 70s, the Department of Defense wanted to ensure a robust, stable satellite navigation system that could be, available for people. Embracing previous ideas from Navy scientists, the Department of Defense decided to use satellites to support their proposed navigation system. They then followed through and launched its first navigation system with timing and ranging satellite, what was called Navstar, in 1978. This 24-satellite system became fully operational in 1993. So I'm a little hazy on the history of this, but I think that our GPS was like a private military thing, and I think that a civilian airplane was shot down or something like that because they flew into the wrong airspace. I think it was Russia's. I can't remember. And then that's when I think the United States decided to make this a publicly available thing and not just hoarded by, the U.S. government and the military as like a super secret thing.
Okay, you never told me the cost.
Oh, sorry, $12 billion. And some of these figures, one I saw 10, another one I saw 12. I kind of just went with the higher one. Called it 12.
I've always wondered this about the GPS because we're still using this today, obviously. And is this at this point just a public service? Is someone making money off this, or is it just? No,
I mean the satellites are up there. They're operational. They're already up there. I mean at this point you're just kind of any maintenance that's required, and I guess any of the technology to interpret the data and make it readily available. But the satellites, the cost for the satellites being up there and doing their thing is done with, unless one breaks down and we got to launch another one up there to replace it. I don't, as far as who's paying it, I'm guessing it's a government thing, so we're paying for it, the taxpayer.
Well, that's nice. That's nice of them to give us a cute little GPS to use.
Imagine if you open Google Maps and then Google Maps wanted you to pay a $5 monthly subscription for it. Or you're in the middle of navigating, your right turn is coming up in 1 mile, and then all of a sudden you get an unskippable 10-second ad, and you missed your turn.
That's the reality right there. 10 seconds. Although you're being generous with 10
It'd
seconds.
It'd be 30 seconds,
at
least.
Yeah. Yeah. Because before cell phones were using GPSs, you'd buy a Garmin or a TomTom, like a little screen GPS that you'd attach in your car.
Gotta love it.
What would I do without it? God damn, I don't know how people drove before GPS.
I know. Well, they had big fucking huge ass map that you had to pull over on the side of the road and go, did I take this turn? Where the fuck am I on this? Did I pass this highway?
Or you had to stop and ask for instructions, and you didn't
Or
have a cell phone to call someone
you're
and ask.
highlighting it as you go or something. I don't know.
There was a few year period where you and I were driving like between maps and GPS, where we would use MapQuest.
Yeah, I remember that. And yeah, I would print out instructions. I remember I'd print them out. Yeah.
That's what you had to do because we didn't have iPhones to pull them up on. So anyway, technology moves fast, Stephen.
Listener, they call me Dr. Buster for a reason. It's because I have a PhD in both podcasting and in psychology and in whooping Nick's ass up and down every 10-ish list. I love to read books dealing with psychology. It's part of my profession and keeping up with the cutting edge in the field. That's why I've launched a new mini podcast called The Book Buster. That podcast is where I provide quick reviews of the latest psychology and self-help books, just like The Moral Landscape by Sam Harris or Dopamine Nation by Anna Lemke. Each episode provides a review in less than 10 minutes, and I share what I'll be checking out next so that you, listener, can get involved and read that book and experience it before I cover it on the next episode. I hope you'll check it out, and who knows, you might just find your next great read. The Book Buster releases on the third Friday of every month, exclusively for 10ish Pod Plus members. Go to 10ishpod, that's 10ishpod.com/plus to get a free 7-day trial. They told me there was nothing free in this life. They were lying.
All right, give me a hint on number 7.
Okay, so number 7 and number 5 are closely related. Everyday people own these, but these two are just on a massive fucking scale.
Radio? Oh, is this
Nope.
the okay. Well, I was going to say the little transmission they have that sends out signals to potential aliens in the universe. Do you know what
Nope.
I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, but nope, that's not it.
Is it the 2 bathrooms at the space station to upkeep those janitorial staff?
You guessed
and
it. Number
paper
7
towels?
and number 5. It depends on which one Buster's taking his shit in. That one's number 5.
You have to double the cleaning crew.
Yeah.
Okay. I need something else, but bigger hint.
Okay, I had one of these when I was younger. I'd like to have one now, but living
A drone?
in a city with a lot of light pollution, there's just not a lot to look at.
Telescope.
There
Okay,
you
so
go.
the James Hubble telescope.
You just combine two names together.
Hubble and James. What's the James one? Oh, fuck. The James one is the newer one. What is that called?
Well, we talked
Don't tell me.
about... Do you want me to give you a hint?
James
No!
Webb telescope.
I was going to give you a
knew
hint
it.
about
I just
spiders. I was going to say we were talking about spiders. Now think about...
See, we can't go through
was
a
gonna
fucking
try and
single
lead you down
episode
the
without
road.
you talking about spiders.
Okay, so
All
which
right.
one are you guessing first, since you guessed both at the same time?
James Webb at number 5.
Negative.
Are you serious? Okay, so Hubble
I
is
am
number
serious.
5.
Hubble is number 5. Hubble is number 5 at 16 billion.
Are they still using that, or is it decommissioned with James Webb?
They're still using it. If you remember when we were talking about the International Space Station, we said that it orbits about 400 kilometers above the Earth's surface. The Hubble's telescope is 525 kilometers above the Earth's surface, and has a velocity of 27,000 kilometers per hour, which is how fast Nick thought the rovers were moving when he was shocked that they had only gone 13 miles and
I thought they were going 27,000 kilometers an hour. They're going faster than the speed of fucking light, just going from one end of Mars to the other. All right.
This telescope has taken, shitload of pictures. I think almost every cool space picture that you've ever seen is probably something from the Hubble telescope. High resolution
until the last year or
photographs
two.
of... Well, yeah, James Webb is probably doing those now. But you got stars, galaxies, nebulas, cosmic objects, all kinds of shit that Hubble has been taking pictures of and sending back. It's named after the astronomer Edwin Hubble. And the Space Telescope was originally conceived, in the 1940s. It took decades to develop, and it was initially called the Large Space Telescope before it was named after Hubble in 1983.
I do have to say Hubble is better than Large Space
The
Telescope.
Large Space Telescope.
Yeah. It makes
Big ass space telescope.
I love if NASA came out with an official, like the formal official name is Big Ass Fucking Telescope. The BAF.
Yeah.
But it is, you think about the Hubble and the James Webb, and then you think about what's his name? Is it Galileo? Who was the one that was...
Who invented the telescope?
Was it the what?
Who
no, the
invented
guy, did he?
I think it might have been Galileo.
Come on.
Hell,
People
I
are
don't
yelling
know.
at us.
Let's take a look here.
Galileo telescope. Yeah, it was him.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, so like, he's looking through like a paper towel tube basically
Johannes
compared
Kepler.
to this thing. No, I'm talking about like back in the fucking like not ancient, but like in the, 1600s or whatever, the guy that like discovered a bunch of the planets. Galileo Galilei, he was the developer of the thermoscope and the inventor of various military compasses and used telescope for scientific. And he lived, and it cut off there. He died in 1642. That's the guy I'm talking about. And I'm talking about how he was looking through like, a hollowed out pig bone or something to look up at the stars. And
While
now
he was
we got
shitting in the street.
while he was shitting in the street. And now we have the James Webb and the Hubble. It's just an amazing feat of human technology.
It really is. They're amazing devices, and I've watched some videos. I think it might have been on the James Webb, but they have like just such sophisticated like mirrors and glass that has to be like pristine clean, and these things are built in like intense clean rooms. And everything has to be perfectly level, no flaw in it at all. It's just amazing that you can build something so delicate and then launch the fucking thing into space and have it going 27,000 miles an hour or whatever it is,
Almost as fast as the Curiosity Mars rover.
Yeah. I think it's like 17,000 miles an hour, but yeah, it's insane. And that's what they did. They finally finished it in 1930, and they launched it into orbit with the Discovery space shuttle and deployed it a day later. It's made 1.5 million observations, over 1.5 million observations, and discoveries done by it have led to the publications of more than 20,000 peer-reviewed science papers.
It was huge for NASA. One of the best things they ever did.
It discovered the moons around Pluto, galactic phenomenons more than 13 billion light years away from Earth. It made so many contributions to space studies that honestly, it's kind of amazing that it took so long to build a better one. You know what I mean? For something that's been so productive for science, you'd think they'd be like, let's fucking build another one, which they did, but just kind of surprising.
Fun thing, brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, 13 billion light years.
Yeah.
And it's still going, right?
It had a lifespan of 15
going
years,
for almost
but
100 years.
They've been making modifications and improvements over the decades to keep it going.
So they must send people up there to repair it and shit.
Yeah, do some maintenance on it or whatever. And it's supposed to
or
be
whatever.
Give it an oil change, rotate the tires.
Yeah, of course. You got to. I mean,
Yeah.
It's just wear and tear. You got to take care of the wear and tear.
They plan to keep it up there until the late 2030s, at least as of now.
Damn. Well, thank you. God bless you, Hubble telescope. So tell me about the James Webb.
Okay, so James Webb, a little less. It's at 10 billion, and this was in 2021. This telescope is the largest and most powerful telescope to date. And just like the Hubble Space Telescope, it has massive space instruments that are designed to look as far into the universe as possible. The telescope was launched on Christmas of 2021. Thank you, Saint Nick. I wonder if Saint Nick came down with Rudolph.
Thank you, Saint Nick.
You think Rudolph came down and he said, "Here, I'll help you. I'll get you part of the way." Instead of getting it on a rocket, Santa just came down with his reindeer and helped fly it.
Yeah,
up
I think
there.
it's real possible, Stephen. I think it's possible. Yes, for sure.
I bet he made.
I think
a quick,
it's likely.
I bet he fucking made a quick buck off that too. That fucking frugal son of a bitch.
All right, you're done. Just keep going. Fucking James Webb Telescope, you son of a bitch.
So the James Webb Telescope has objectives, and one of those is to try to see what the universe was like about 200 million years after the Big Bang. We're trying to look as far back as possible to see what the early infancies of the universe were like. And it's also going to be looking for life on other planets, looking at atmospheres of exoplanets, and I mean, the possibilities are endless. If the Hubble Space Telescope has demonstrated anything about what these powerful telescopes are capable of doing, you get a more powerful one, they're probably going to get, more shit out of it.
This telescope is literally looking into the past.
Well, I guess every
it's-
telescope does that. It just this one does it better.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. But this one's putting, what did you say, 200 million years after the Big Bang,
Yeah.
which is, I don't know, like 10 billion or more years ago, or more. I don't even.
No.
How old do they
the
think?
Big Bang? I think they think the universe is around. I want to say it was like 14 billion is like the estimate now.
I think Earth is 10 billion years.
Oh, you know what? You may be right. No. 14 billion.
Okay, 14 billion.
Yeah,
So they're
that's
looking
the current
back
estimate.
almost 14 billion years into the past.
It's crazy.
If that doesn't move you, listener, then I don't know what to tell you. It's truly humbling to think about that shit.
It's got infrared. It has a infrared space observatory that can see through dust and other cloudy bullshit that would have otherwise impeded you to be like if you were just looking through lenses, you would see a wall of dust or nebula or whatever, and you wouldn't be able to see through it. But with this infrared technology, it can help bypass these obstacles that otherwise would have held you back, which is kind of cool.
Think of all the shit that we have in the world that sucks. Think about the self-checkout at Walmart when it can't register that you put your shit in the bag or not, and it keeps telling you to put the shit back on the scale. So we have this but we have the capability to see through space dust billions of years into the past, but we can't figure out the basic shit like self-checkout machines.
So are you ready to have
I'm
your
just-
mind blown by this telescope? I don't know if you knew this because I did not know this. The Hubble telescope orbits Earth. The James Webb telescope does not. It orbits the sun.
Why?
I imagine it's so that you can get like behind the sun. I don't know the reason for it. I imagine it's so that you could. Well, I was going to say you could. I guess you could be on the dark side of the Earth though, and then you wouldn't have any of the sun's interference when you're trying to look out. I don't know. There must be a reason for it. I guess we can look it up.
So they just put the shit over near the sun, and then the sun's orbit will suck it up and put it into rotation. You guys should see how serious Steven looks when he's looking something up on Google. It's fucking cute.
Oh, that was my guess. I just thought that the Earth could do this for it, but the James Webb Telescope has large sun shields that can protect the telescope from the light and the heat of the sun and allow it to look out like in the opposite direction.
Oh, like the other side of the sun.
Yeah.
All right.
And I imagine if you're not orbiting Earth, if Earth is on a fixed pattern, right? But if you're orbiting the sun, it's different. Like you can, you're not on Earth's orbit, you're on your own orbit. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. For the listeners that maybe aren't as familiar with the James Webb Telescope, I'll put some pictures of really cool shit it's taken photos of in the show notes too. You should take a look. It's some mind-blowing stuff.
Yeah, its first picture was released in July 2022. Deepest and the sharpest infrared image of a distant universe, which is very, very cool. All right, well, that's all I have on the James Webb Telescope.
So what the hell could number one be? Is this like something I'm familiar with and I'm going to kick myself for not?
It's so painfully obvious, that's probably why you haven't guessed it. It is by far the longest running program on this list.
Okay.
So if you want a hint, what did we start doing after Apollo? The Apollo program ended, and then what did we do? It doesn't even have it's not even a very fancy name.
Is it something like GPS, like something we all...
Kind of. Do you want me to just give it to you?
Sure.
It's just called the Space Shuttle program.
Oh, the Space Shuttle program.
Of
Go ahead,
course.
say. Well, yeah, how'd you know that, Nick?
How did you know that?
I told you at the beginning, I'm really good at guessing.
You are. It's so impressive.
The Space Shuttle program, okay.
So the Space Shuttle program, and so when you think of a spaceship today, you know how you have like the plane looking thing with the big orange fuel tank? That's the Space Shuttle program. And that was from 1972 until 2011. So it was the fourth human spaceflight program carried out by NASA. And the whole point was to create a reusable spacecraft to carry humans into orbit. Because through the Apollo program, you build a big ass fucking rocket and it's basically just fuel the whole way up. And you burn it and then you dump a piece of it. And then you keep burning and then you dump a piece of it until you get just a little capsule on top that has all the astronauts in it. And then all of that shit that you used just came crashing down to Earth. And then it was basically, I don't even think they reused any of those. But the whole point of the Space Shuttle program was you still have the huge fuel tank canister, but the spaceship itself is at least able to be piloted and re-enter on Earth and is reusable so that you don't have to keep building a new one every single time.
Okay. So how much was this one?
So this
Or
is
is- was?
196 billion.
Damn.
There were 6 shuttles that were developed throughout the course of this lifespan. There were Discovery, Atlantis, Endeavour, Challenger, Columbia, and Enterprise. And some of those are
Challenger. I
probably
didn't guess Challenger.
some of those are probably familiar to you.
Yep.
All of these have been retired. The program has, ended. 3 of them are housed in U.S. space museums. Columbia and Challenger were 2 accidents that happened in 1986 and 2003 that killed deaths of all the astronauts that were on board, and I believe there were 14 total between the 2. Enterprise was the first orbiter that never flew into space. I think it was like a test one to make sure that it could actually work. The program could actually operate. They flew 135 missions in total, helping push scientific advancements into space, build the International Space Station, basically anything that was going on in space that we needed to launch up there for throughout those 40 years. That were these ships that were doing it. And I think everybody knows what they look like. Just that description. I think everybody probably has something in their head.
Yeah, like the famous, like when you in your mind when you think of a space shuttle. Like,
Yep.
That's what it is.
Eventually that'll change. I'm curious what the next one will be, the next iteration.
Have you seen Austin Powers when they shoot the thing that looks like a dick
Is
into
that where it like transitions conveniently, like right when someone's about to say
Mhm.
they transfer? It's like, Dick, have you seen this huge Johnson? Where is Johnson? Like,
Yeah, exactly. That's the future of space travel.
Yeah.
But the space shuttle program is like not the sexiest thing we've talked about today, but it's been hugely important to so many other important missions.
For sure. There's no, I mean, pretty much every mission that you're talking about a 40-year period. That's a lot. There's a lot of space, a lot of space travel, a lot of technologies, and just helping build and maintain probably a lot of these satellites, the space station, probably the Hubble telescope. They're probably using the space shuttle program to get up there and, do modifications on that. It's, the space shuttle program to me basically is NASA. Like if I had to pick a face of NASA, if I'm picturing NASA in my head, it's that space shuttle.
For me, it's the Perseverance Mars rover doing a little dance with his little arms on Mars.
Yeah. And the little
That's
helicopter,
what I picture when I think of
little helicopter flying out of him.
That's after he's been enrobed in chocolate. Okay, space shuttle program. I like it. 196 billion. Damn, but that's over 40 years.
Over 40 years.
Yeah.
By comparison, the Apollo program was only 11 years, and that was 200 adjusted for inflation. 250 billion, I think, is what it was. So you've got 250 billion in an 11-year program versus 196 billion in a 40-year program. So it just goes to show how, I guess, serious the space race was in the 60s and how much we were willing to invest in that.
Okay, we did it. I did it. I guessed them all
You
right.
did a
First
great
time
job.
out.
Very first try. You nailed them all in a row, literally from 10 to 1, and you didn't miss one. My jaw's on the floor.
Steven, I tried to tell you at the beginning of this episode that I'm a pro. And so I'd like you to professionally read back the list to me, starting at number 10.
Okay. Number 10, we have a Mars rover, Perseverance, at 2.4 billion. Number 9, another Mars rover, Curiosity, at 2.5 billion. Number 8, the Cassini-Huygens. I'm guessing I'm saying that right. I have no fucking idea. At 3.26 billion. Number 7, the James Webb Telescope, 10 billion. Number 6, the GPS system and all 24, or I think there's 30 satellites, 12 billion. Number 5, the Hubble Space Telescope, 16 billion. Number 4, the Apollo Space Program, 25 billion in 1960s money. Number 3, the Artemis program, which I'm most excited about, 93 billion. Number 2, the International Space Station at 150 billion. And number 1, the Space Shuttle program, 196 billion over the course of like 40 years.
Can we just pause and give a fucking standing ovation to NASA? All the cool
Thank you,
shit they've
NASA.
done over the years, and all the cool shit they're going to do. They're going to save our asses too one of these days.
Listeners
I
of the
really
show.
enjoyed this list, Stephen. Thank you for bringing this list.
Yeah, like I said, I was inspired by the For All Mankind show on Apple Plus, and I give it a thumbs up. I really like it. We're only through season 1, so a lot of room for ups and downs, I guess. But because I think there's 4 seasons. But hey, I recommend it. It's pretty cool.
Hey, next time you're going to give free ad space to a potential sponsor like Apple TV Plus, please
Apple is
share
already
that with
paying me right
first.
now. I'm part of the.
Okay. The money well spent, I'm sure. All right, I'll check it out. You need to watch Don't Look Up on Netflix. And listeners, if you enjoyed Steven fucking up on this episode, then you'll probably enjoy our new blooper reel that's out now for Tennis Pod Plus members. It features never before heard bloopers and outtakes from the last month of episodes. You can unlock this blooper reel now by signing up for the Peanut Butter Fiend membership level at tennispod.com/plus. If you're already a member but not a Peanut Butter Fiend member, it takes just a few seconds to upgrade. You can see the link in the show notes. And of course, all Tennis Pod Plus members get new monthly bonus episodes, early and ad-free main feed episodes like the one you're listening to now, and more. You can start your free 7-day trial at tennispod.com/plus.
I like how you blooped on your own plug for your blooper reel.
Well, you got to. And if you're wondering, yes, the blooper reel is just 98% Dr. Buster fucking existing, because everything that comes out of his mouth is a blooper. So, and out of his ass too, if we're being honest. But that's another thing. All right, Steven, anything else you want to say to the fine listeners at home?
Nope. Just
Okay, great.
I was trying to think of a way to say the one small step for man, one giant leap for podcasts or something like that. I was trying to find a way to incorporate Tennis Podcast, but I was too slow, I
think this is going in the blooper reel for next month.
Hey, I'll see you there.
Yeah. Well, folks, listeners, I hope you enjoyed this episode here on Earth, and I look forward to producing future episodes of the show on Mars, and eventually, when we have the technology to live forever, we can do this again in another solar system altogether. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you next week for episode 272. Goodbye.
See ya.